Hi there. In this video, I'm going to talk about assignment 5 and give you some scaffolding, essentially give you an outline and some suggestions on how to approach this assignment. So here's the assignment. Let's just go through the document real quick. After completing this assignment, you should be able to draw conclusions from data by using quantitative reasoning, including reading charts, graphs, or tables, right? So this is what you've been doing in this chapter of data science, trying to figure out how to look at data, how to use the data to come up with some charts using Google Colab notebooks. You've done bar charts, histograms, scatter plots, with your dog database and your beetles and all the other examples that we have. So you're essentially given a data set that looks like this. This is your data set. You have a few columns of data and you're asked a few questions. Okay, you're also given Google Colab's notebook to start with. And starting with the first question that says state the problem or question. So we are giving you a question and you need to explain why the question is important or significant, right? Which occupation group is at most risk of being affected. So explain why it's important, list an additional question, and you determine information needed. What columns of this data can you use to get this question answered? Okay, and representation. Okay, once you find the columns of data, how are you going to draw charts? What kind of charts do you need? Okay, things like that. And there are some tips here. How do you interpret this? So once you have your chart, what do you get out of it, right? And do you get all the information out of it? Do you have everything? Maybe you don't have everything. But with the information given, what can you get out of it? And what conclusions can you draw from it? And how does it affect society? Okay. And again, as you answer these questions, you want to make sure that you use solid data that you have. And if you don't have data, then if you're assuming something, then you should state your assumptions. And you may not have all the answers to all the questions, right? We only have a limited amount of data, and with what we have, we figure out what we can. So I'm going to show you a similar example, which looks like this, and kind of show you how to do some charts and things like that. What I have is a dog database, which is a little, it's not exactly the same as your assignment database, but it parallels it. It has breed groups, different groups. And within the breed group, we have different dog breeds. So herding has 6 different types of breeds. Working dogs have 4 different types of breeds, right? Some data that I came up with. Obviously, it's a very small sample set, but we start small so you can look at the data better than looking at and then take it and apply it to your large data set. So this, if you look at it, has a lot of data. And so to do trial and error, it's good to do it with a small amount, and then you can apply that to your large data set. So that's the goal. And so just like you have occupation group, occupation names, within the administrative group, you have several different occupations. And you have employment, which is the number of people employed, and the different A exposure, low, medium, high, and the median salary. Okay, you may or may not use all of the data. That's up to you and how you look at data. But what I have here is breed group and dog breed, which is very similar to what we had there. Occupation name is like the dog breed. And the maximum lifespan is the number of years the dog's maximum, that breed's lifespan is. Okay, this is similar to the exposure, high exposure, low exposure, or high lifespan versus low lifespan. And I just picked some random numbers, right? I got some data, I picked random numbers. Anything 12 and below is a low lifespan. Anything 13 and above, 13 to 15, I set as medium lifespan. So 0 to 12 is, I'm just typing down here, low lifespan. 13 to 15 is medium, and anything greater than 15 is high. Okay, high lifespan. So that's how I put my data in. And you can modify this. I'm going to give you this data. You can make copies of it. You can change it. You can add things to it. And you can try things out. Okay. So, and then the number of dogs. Okay. So I have this database where I have 10 Australian Kelpies, 12 Australian Shepherds, and so on and so forth. Just like your employment number. This is how many dogs I have in each dog breed. and in each group. Okay, so now with this data, what can I say? So the question that I'm trying to answer is, let me go to my pivot tables here to take a look at the question. Here's my question. Which breed groups are the longest lived versus short lived? So that's the question I'm trying to answer. So I will put the question down here. So the question I'm trying to answer is, which breed groups are the long-lived versus short-lived? Okay, so there's the question. There's some information. Now I'm going to start out with Google Sheets pivot tables. These are what we call pivot tables, which helps me do some calculations. Obviously, I don't want to go through this and say, well, how many do I have here? How many dogs do I have? And if I have a large data set, that's going to be very hard for me to try and just look at it like this. If I highlight that, notice at the bottom it says 93. But I don't want to have to do that. I can create what we call pivot tables. And so here's another tab at the bottom where I have created a pivot table. So the way you create the pivot table is you go up to data and you say pivot table. And it brings up this information. Okay, so let me just show you how to create the pivot table. Let me go to a new tab here at the bottom. Actually, let me go back here and we'll do the pivot table here and move it to a new tab, or since I already have it, I can delete it. So you go to data and you say pivot table. And okay, so it says, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to put it on a new sheet? I'm going to say yes, put it on a new sheet. And by default, it automatically says the data range is all of this. Okay, so if I don't do that, it's going by default A1 through E21, all of this data, which is what we want. Okay, I'm going to say okay to that, and I'm going to say create. And so here's the pivot table. It brings all the columns and the groups and everything in. Now, if I want to create a pivot table with breed group as rows, so that's how that looks. So I add and I click on breed group. Now in columns, if you want maximum lifespan, actually no, I want, let's X that out. I want lifespan tiers. So high, low, and medium, right? And what do I want here? What kind of counts do I want? I go down to values and I say add. I want to add, if you want to add number of dogs, you can do that. Or if you do dog breed, you're going to get counts of each breed. So if you look at this under herding, I have here, let's highlight this stuff and I'm going to center it. Okay, and then just do some alignment so it looks better. There we go. So herding, I have 2 low and 4 medium and a total of 6. So where did that information come from? So if you go back to your tab here, you will see that under herding group, I have 2 lows and 4 medium. This is just the count of the number of breeds. This has nothing to do with the number of dogs, right? So there's different data. So I have 2 lows and 4 mediums. So if I go back here to my pivot tables, my sheet here at the bottom, because that's what I told it to do. So if you look at your pivot table, you said dog breed. Dog breed is simply going to give me the counts. If I want to do, so that tells me for each group I have how many counts of each breeding, each dog breed. Not the actual number of dogs in each breed, just the counts of the breed, right? Which is like for in each occupation, in each group, how many occupations do I have? It has nothing to do with the number of people. It simply says how many occupations do you have. So in each group, how many breeds are low and how many breeds are high. So that's a different analysis. But if I go here and change this, take away the dog breed and say I want number of dogs, now it actually gives me the count of the number of dogs, right? So you can get different types of pivot tables. So this tells me that under the herding group, I have a total of 50 dogs, which is what this is. This count is 50. And out of these, it tells me how many are medium and how many are low. So I don't have to use my calculator and do the calculations. The pivot table will give me that kind of information. And so that's how you do your pivot table. And you can play around with it. You can say, I don't want sum, but maybe I want averages, I want percentages. You can do different things. So there is the average. I'm not sure if that was the right thing, but you probably want percentages. So if you look at my pivot tables that I have created here, I can go here and say, well, so here we go. Percent of row is what I did to be able to get the percentages. So percent of row, right? 2 out of 6 is 1/3. 4 out of 6 is 2/3. And then 3 dogs under terrier, they're all high lifespan. So I only have 3. Obviously, I have a limited amount of data. And then under toy, I have a total of 7, out of which 5 are high and 2 are low, or 2 are medium, and so on. Okay, so this is kind of how you do the pivot table, and I have 2 of them here in this Google Sheets that I will share with you. This is based on the counts, and here is one based on the number of dogs, not the count, it's the sum of the total number of dogs. This is based on the number of dog breed. In each group, there's a total of 6 different breeds, and out of that, 2 are low and 4 are medium. In this case, in that herding group, there are a total of 50 dogs. Out of that, 12 of them are low and 38 of them are medium. And so if you look at the percentages, they are slightly different, right? When you look at the data, 24% of it is low if you go by the number of dogs, whereas here 33% of them are low if you go by the count of the each breed, as opposed to the number of dogs in each breed. Okay, so that's pivot tables. Now, how do we take this and transfer that to Google Colab? So here we go to Google Colab. And again, I will share this with you as well. What I have here is, again, you've seen this in all your dogs database that you have done. Here's your dogs database from the lessons, how to import Matplotlib and pandas, and how to use all of that stuff. Okay, this is very similar to that. I've imported a couple of other extra things. Matplotlib and pandas are there. NumPy is used to do some calculations. I imported NumPy, and I also imported Seaborn, so you can use that for heat maps, right? The colored heat maps, so we can get different colors and things like that. And I have a dog CSV, which is this Google Sheets that you saw. I downloaded this as a CSV, and I will give you that as well. And so that's right here. In fact, you can just download it from here. So I imported that, import all of this stuff. So run that first, download this, put it over here. Remember, in order for this to work, you have to make sure you're in the Files tab, then drag it and drop it from your wherever you downloaded it. Then you create the data frame. Make sure it has the check columns. Right now it brings all the columns in. df.head, this just shows you all the data. df.head says give me all the data that is in there. You can do that if you want to. So some of these things may not be in your lessons, which is why we're going through this. The group by is just an example of a group by to show how to group by the breed group and dog breed dot count. So this is how many groups, how many dog breeds are there in the herding group. This is how many terrier dog breeds are there, right? Which is what your data shows. So here is the breed group. We have Kelpie, Shepherd, Beauceron, and all of these different types of, and that's 6 of them under herding. And if you look at the rest of the data, you can always double click on this and it'll bring up the data here and increase the number of lines. You can see under toy, I have 7. So this is 7 of them, right? Okay, so now I can also come here instead of dog breed. Let me close this for a second. Instead of dog breed, let's say number of dogs. I want to show number of dogs, and let's see what that does. Okay, so if you change this, okay, so it still says count, right? So we still get 6, but how about if I change that to sum? This gives me the actual sum of the number of dogs in each group. Okay, so that is this number of dogs. So it actually goes through and counts. It adds all of this, the sum of this. It doesn't just count this because this is categorical, so it counts the number, whereas this is quantitative, so it actually is able to sum the numbers for me. Okay, so you can change some of these things to see what you want to get. Now here's where we actually start analyzing the pivot tables, right? Here's where we translate that pivot table that we saw in Google Sheets Group by will help you get the pivot table. Don't worry about these two things. This is simply sorting it in low, medium, high. Notice in my Google Sheets, when I first create the pivot table, it puts it as high, low, medium. It's not really sorted as low, medium, high. So this kind of says categorical data type, lifespan type. This is the name of a variable in Python. Okay. Categorical data type, categories equals low, medium, high, ordered equals true, says sort them in that order. And which column am I applying that to? DF lifespan tiers, which is the name of my column, lifespan tiers. And you're saying take this column and apply this sorting type to that, which has these three columns, and sort it for me. And that's how I want to see it. Okay, so now this lifespan tiers column has been sorted. So when I use that here in my group by, it's going to show up in this order. Okay, so df.group by, you can comment these things and try it with this, without that, see how everything works. Really have to play around with code. Group by, I want to group by breed group, lifespan tiers on this side, okay, rows and columns. Number of dogs, this is where you tell it whether you want to count or sum. So number of dogs dot sum, just like we did here, okay. Dot unstack, dot fill na, these are our syntax to say, give me all of this for the different columns that I have. Fill na of 0 says put zeros where there's no numbers, because otherwise here you can see how it will show up without that. Style background, gradient, CMAP equals this color. Okay, so if you run this, it pretty much generates this chart. Now, if you want to see how some things work, take that out and run it. You see this nan, which is not a number, which is not very nice. So we'd like to just have this in there, so it actually fills it with zeros. Okay, now you can take that and get its percentages. That is a little bit more. So let's see how to do that. How do I get the percentages of this to display like this? It's the same as that, but now we get percentages, right? Now again, you can change this number of dogs to breed, dog breed dot count, and it will show you the other numbers like 2 and 4, a total of 6, and so on and so forth. This pivot table can be got exactly the same way. This pivot table, by just changing this to dog breed, which shows me the dog names, dot count. Okay, and that's what we're going to do here to calculate the percentages. Okay, so let's see how to calculate these percentages. Breed count is column 1, okay, which is nothing but the breed group. Dog count equals number of dogs. So all I'm doing is taking this number of dogs column and calling it dog count, which is really what it is. All we're doing is renaming it. Then we create two variables called group count and dog count. Okay, these are going to give me the totals of group count, because I need to calculate the percentage, right? The percentage of each one is 12 divided by 50, 38 divided by 50. That's what gives me these numbers. Okay, so group count is df.group by breed group, breed count.sum. Now, if you want to know what each one of these is doing, just go print. This is just regular Python variables. So you do print group underscore count. Okay, you run this. See, it prints all your counts. This is nothing but the total number of breeds in each group, which is the same as, not this, but I'm going to change this to dog breed. I think that's what it's called, dot count, right? Maybe breed with a capital B. Oops. There we go. So 6 total breeds in herding, right? So that's what we are looking at here. So group count says give me the count of the number of dog breeds in each group. Now, let's see print dog count on the next line and see what that gives you. Dog underscore count. That's going to give me the dog count for each group. There we go, the number of dogs. So then we can calculate our percentages by taking each breed, low, medium, whatever, divided by 6 will give me the percentage for low. the count for medium divided by 6 will give me the percentage for medium, right? Okay, so that's the next step. So we got the totals. Now, lifespan tier group count. This is the count for each lifespan tier. This is what we are talking about. This, the two lows and so on and so forth, right? Or the total count, 12 lows and 38 mediums, 12 low dogs. This is a count of dogs. Okay, so lifespan tier group count equals df.group by breed group lifespan tiers, count by lifespan tiers, which is very similar. We are looking at this number for low and this number for medium. That's what we're calculating here. Dot sum, and then all the rest of the stuff that you had up here. Right here, we did this. See? Here I'm doing it by number of dogs, but here we are doing it by breed count. And then by number of dogs, which is the dog count. Number of dogs is the same as dog count. Okay? Dot sum. So this will give me each count for low, medium, and high. And then to calculate the percentage, you take group count divided by, you take the individual group count for low, medium, high divided by the total group count times 100, right? You all know that's the percentage. That's how you calculate it. So if you want, here, let me comment this out. Comment this out and print something else for you. How about I print, you can print this. All of these are Python variables. How about you print this? And you can print it and run it. See, it gives you the count of each low, medium, high dogs under herding. These are not the number of dogs. These are the number of breeds, dog breeds. 2 dog breeds are low, 4 dog breeds are medium, right? And then if you print, just change this to dog and put it after calculating that. Now run it. This is the number of dogs. And that's what we need. So we have all our variables set up. Now the percent would be essentially 12 divided by 50 times 100, or 2 divided by 6 times 100, right? And then we display it. So we take this variable and display it exactly the same way we displayed it here, group by. Well, this does a group by and display all at the same time. Here we have a display command that actually goes through and displays that variable. Here we do the calculation without putting it in a variable. We simply say group by and display all at the same time, right? So it's just like some of the things that you've done in Python. You can calculate it, put it in variables, because it's easier for us to understand this whole thing. So let me comment out that print statement as well, and then you run this. So this is what you get. And the heat map that you apply, again, you can change this stuff. Go do a Google on CMap and Seaborn, and you'll see how to change some of these things. So it shows you that, you know, the darker color, this is a high for each category, low, medium, and high. And so you can kind of use this to apply for your data and see who has the highest exposure, because this shows me who has the highest lifespan in terrier. And so if you look at this, terrier has a high lifespan, and working dogs have 100% of them have the low lifespan, right? Again, this is based on my data, and I have very little data. It might change if I put in lots of data. Herding dog is medium, right? And the next best for high is toys, right? And you can take this and apply your scatter plots as well. So if you go to your, this is from your lesson, scatter plot. I'm just going to copy this. And you can put it in here and see how to do a scatter plot for this as well. And change a few things. I don't think that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to put it in here. Try this one more time. Control C. Okay, so you add code at the bottom and you put this in. Now you got to change a few things. Both columns should be quantitative, right? So what are our 2 columns that are quantitative? I can use maximum lifespan and number of dogs, okay? So let's see, to get a scatter plot. So we'll change this to maximum lifespan, and this to, let's just copy from here and paste it, number of dogs. Here we go. Dogs. And then we want to obviously change all these things. So put number of dogs here, number of dogs. So this would really be count of the number of dogs. Maximum lifespan will go here. So maximum lifespan versus number of dogs. Okay, and you run it. And there's the scatter plot. Okay. Now, if you wanted to apply your low, medium ranges, right, based on what I did, you copy these lines here to draw the vertical lines, and you put it in here. Okay. Now, my range, if you look at this, says, what did we say? 0 to 12 is low, 13 to 15 is medium. So you want to say 12 years is low, 13 to 15, again, I have a very small range, so you're not going to see much of a variation, but again, you can expand this. So greater than 15 years is where I want my lines to be. So then I need to change this to say 12 and this to say 15. Okay. And so that's kind of how it looks. I think this is 12 or 13. Yeah. And greater than 15. Okay, so if you have more data, it'll make a lot more sense. But you see how you can do a scatter plot this data. So you can combine all the things that you have learned so far and this piece of code that I have shown you here to get some good information from your AI data. And based on that, you can write your representation, interpretation, conclusion, and how it's going to affect, how you think it's going to affect society based on the data you have. Good luck.